King Richard. Richard is the father of the tennis players, Serena and Venus Williams, and he's extremely defensive. He protects them from the basically the racist world, not to mention any physical harm, but he's like this overly protective, overbearing father. That's his role. Hyper defensive. And you have a entire movie about this, and he plays this character. So now he gets an Oscar for the role. And you have Chris Rock disses his wife. What does he do? He gets up on stage and he defends her, as the character would have, and he makes that remark, and he even says, art imitates life. But it gets more interesting because
they can miss some message. Timbuktu got bodies, yeah. Find them in our records. Auto host a message. Squad are represented. Killing you with knowledge, yeah. The uppers getting dirty. Oh, you're so effective. Cause we're so effective. Let go of your worries, yeah. The whole thing is a setup. We got it and we get it. Offering refreshment. Level up your conscience, yeah. It's honestly the essence. This wave is uncontainable. Facts are undebatable. You lanes are unrelatable. Give a fuck about saving you. We could keep on playing you. You just keep complaining too. Game is unescapable unless you're with the gang or no. Messing with the penguin. We're messing with the penguin. 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 Fucking with the penguins. Yeah, with the penguins. I'm coming with a vengeance, trying to make you come to your senses. Forget the general consensus, just pay attention. The book just has paid for good intentions. I'm clenching my back wrenching, representing only the most superior independent media. We got that real shit fucking encyclopedia. We're bringing an end to this mass hysteria. They wanna know why it's so serious, cause you must be delirious. If you're still believing stuff, get a grip and show some evidence for your own claims. We don't play no games, we stay relentless, exposing hopes events. Quick DIPS are making an entrance. Busting doors down, cause now's the time for interventions. Did I mention we're affecting so many men across the spectrum? We stand out from the crowd, we don't blend.
okay, we're gonna go ahead and start early. Signals have gone out. Anyone who's getting text alerts has received them. Email notifications gone out. This is Fepe Akbar. If I'm allergic to bullshit, as you all know. Alright, thanks everyone for joining. Again, text notifications are available at infiniteplane.media. Just go to infiniteplane.media. You can sign up for text notifications, the newsletters. And also, if you go there, I've actually embedded an RSS feed. So everything that's posted to Infinite Plane Society, all the notifications, they show up there as well. Alright, let's see who's in the chat. I did some research on some of our trolls recently, and I decided that the best way to deal with them is to interview them. So I'm actually reaching out. So if anybody knows Goyim TV, have them contact me. I'd like to do an interview one-on-one on Skype. So I'm going to do a bit of a deep dive into what these guys are about, because I just figured they were feds. Whenever we hit 1,000 subs, we usually get flooded with people. I was being recruited, or they attempted to recruit me for Mandela Effect, Black Hebrew Israelite Simulation Flat Eartherists, and this new brand of, I don't know what you call them. Nazi's not the right term, but anyway, this group has been contacting me, and it turns out that they actually have a media presence. They've been on CNN. They hang signs over bridges and stuff, so should be interesting. Joined by Jeff the Canuck, Damian Fury, John Francis Benton G737, Frank Murr, thank you for joining. ABC says, right, he says, obviously, yeah, the news is fake. Look, the word fake, though, has been so overused, and it throws off a lot of veteran conspiracy theorists who think fake means false flag. And some of these people you just can't change. You're talking about definitions that have been used for decades. So a lot of the people who know about fake news, what it really is, people like Jim Fetzer, they still use the term fake news because, or rather false flag, because false flag and fake news are interchangeable to them. Again, it's not an act of gatekeeping necessarily, but what I would say is this. The term simulation makes more sense, as in simulated news. This was a simulated event, a simulated mass casualty event, recorded as propaganda and presented as real. Perception management is what we're talking about. We're not talking about actual violence. It's a psy war. All right, Gobnato Lunacy is here from Ireland. Looks like. Feel free to call in, by the way, on Skype, Infinite Plane Radio. Says, the Art Bell archive is good. I only discovered it recently. What's interesting is Art Bell is one of the first out there to put out a climate change science fiction based narrative, one of his books. Let me go ahead and put this up here. Art Bell, global warming. Because global warming turns 34 in a few days, so it's almost the birthday of global warming. Here we go. The Coming Global Superstorm is a 1999 book by Art Bell and Whitney Strieber, which says that global warming might produce sudden and catastrophic climate change. So I find it interesting that no matter how far out you go on the fringe, you're still going to push mainstream science. You're still going to push mainstream narratives. Everything has been hijacked as a propaganda outlet. And I just find it fascinating here, though, that the fringe is just another example of controlled opposition. You go there and you're misled, or you're led back into the mainstream fears. And in my view, the global warming climate change is just a way that they sold the fear of God to the atheists. And there are various ways people look at this. Some Christians will say, I believe in global warming because God's doing it to punish the sinners. Liberals will say, I believe in global warming because Globe's doing it to punish the polluters and the capitalists. So they both believe it. And my starting point is it even real? Is there an angry God? Are the floods coming in any day now? I don't think so. Okay, phones are open. Again, 833-311-1984. I'm going to go through my voicemail. Wonder Why says, do not attend any rallies or protests. It's a trap. Crisis and provocateurs get to go home, while the well-intentioned protesters can end up killed or arrested. Yeah, that's a great point here. And I've said this before. If you're on the world stage, you're a dupe. Whether you're a soy boy or a proud boy, you're both fighting for the favor of daddy government. And of course, you're not a crisis actor. You're not getting paid to do it. So why would you go? And when it comes to the coming riots, look, and I'll get into this. Kyle Rittenhouse put out this video game where he shoots turkeys. And the turkeys all say fake news on their chest. So he's already making jokes about shooting the media. Why is he doing this? To raise money to sue the media for libel and slander. Well, I'm sorry, but if you're a public figure, they have a bit more leeway. It's more fair use. It's not like he went into witness protection. If Kyle Rittenhouse went into witness protection, yeah, he could get a big settlement from the media for branding him as a white supremacist, as a mass murderer. But since he's made himself into kind of like a mini Crowder with Louder with Crowder type. He's one of these right-wing, kind of comedian provocateurs. He's a public figure, so good luck with these lawsuits. But anyway, he's raising money for his lawsuits on a video game where he shoots at turkeys. And I'll play the video because it even has a rap, like a little Kyle Rittenhouse rap. Now, my point being, you're going to see riots, of course, because riots are coming. It's that time of the year. But I think this time around, we might see something from the other side. Because if you remember, lights stood down during the 2020 burning down of these cities. During all these riots, they were all peaceful protests. And like peaceful, I mean, it's funny they called them peaceful protests. And I wonder, why hasn't the right wing done this? Oh, that was a peaceful protest on January the 6th. That's what they should have done. But anyway, my point being here, yeah, there's going to be some peaceful protests coming, and I wouldn't be surprised if they have some kind of Kyle coming out, like some kind of psyop. So here it is. Kyle Rittenhouse says, I'm releasing a video game to fight back against the fake news. It's called Kyle Rittenhouse Turkey Shoot. It's total garbage, and this is worse than, Duck Hunt at least has some charm to it. This is garbage. It's $10. So do you have $10 to pay for this game? I'm going to go ahead and play the trailer all the way through. and you can hear the rap at the end. And I think this is all meant to incite. I think this is meant to incite people because what has been the story for the last few months? 18-year-olds with guns shooting places up, motivated by the internet. The school shooter, the Buffalo shooter, these are people who are part of 4chan, they're part of Discord, Twitch. Social media is the devil. Again, RittenhouseGame.com if you want to pre-order it. He says, I'm releasing a video game to fight back against the fake news. Now, can he fight back against the fake news, given that he's a crisis actor himself? I don't think so. And I've even seen him whine about being called a crisis actor. But I don't know. Something about Kenosha, very squibby. Very, very squibby. Let me go play this. This is, again, his video game called Turkey Shoot, available for $9.99 at RittenhouseGame.com. I'm on his Twitter account. This is Kyler. This is Kyler R. And by the way, his Instagram account was actually called Kyler Rittenhouse 33. So he's always had that kind of Masonic branding, the usual signs. Here we go. This
Charges in the Kenosha self-defense case.
Okay, here we go. Kyle Rittenhouse acquitted of intentional homicide and 4 other felonies in Kenosha shooting. Okay, this video we're about to see is trailers for his game, which is out
From the
soon here.
very beginning, I did nothing wrong. But that didn't stop the media from smearing my name. It's time to fight back against the fake news machine. This is why I'm launching the Kyle Rittenhouse Fake News Turkey Shoot video game. The media is nothing but a bunch of turkeys with nothing better to do than push their lying agenda and destroy innocent people's lives. So go to RittenhouseGame.com and pre-order the game now and help me fund the lawsuit to stop these fake news turkeys.
It's the fake news turkey shoot. Got a laser gun going pew pew pew. Filing lawsuits. And we about to bankrupt the fake news. Go to RittenhouseGame.com. Pre-order now.
Got a MAGA rapper on here. MAGA rappers all sound the same. It's its own genre. It's pretty bad. Let me go ahead and play that part again.
RittenhouseGame.com. Pre-order now.
All right, there you have it. Joined by ME Sagittarius Arms Society says, I owe my life to this channel, no vax. Okay, so you've retained your pure blood status. And hey, we have nothing against goo bloods. A lot of my friends are goo bloods. I'm just not going to sit next to you when the EMPs go off and your heads start exploding. As per General Flynn, he actually says that. He says it to people in his inner circle. You got to pay a few $100, like $350 for a private consultation for him to tell you that, yeah, the Chinese EMPs are going to blow up the heads of the goo bloods. So yeah, this game, ridiculous game called Turkey Shoot, is basically Kyle and his revenge fantasy against the media, where he just basically goes Kenosha on CNN. Amazing, right? And of course, the whole premise of this is 18-year-old. And look, if you didn't know this guy was part of an operation, he was 17, front row seat at a Trump rally, white hat, during the riots that the media called peaceful protests. So white hat is code for the people fighting the deep state, the good guys. 17Q. So a white hat, 17-year-old, goes to Kenosha and puts a stop to 3 days of riots. Like, obviously that was an operation. And then Trump shows up and gives them $42 million for what? Doesn't cost that much to bury a pedo, a burglar, and a strangler. Couldn't you just put them all in the same hole or cremate them? $42 million for what? Okay, A. Woodward says MAGA rappers are like M&M's, a dime a dozen. Oh, they're so cringe too. It's all cringe rap. It's a subgenre of cringe rap. So you got cringe rap and then you got MAGA rap. It surfaces every couple of years, like a strain. The newest strain of MAGA rap. JT33 says MAGA rap is almost as bad as Mandela rap. You know, I'd like to know if Mandela rappers are able to remember their lyrics. I bet they get their own lyrics wrong. And they blame the universe. Oh, the universe shifted. You got my lyrics wrong. And that's a good selling point. Hey, my album is actually Mandela affected. This is from a, if you got it, you got Mandela effect residue. You heard me at the concert? Yeah. I was rapping it right. The lyrics are wrong in the printed packaging. Strain Corp says the Vax Democrats will take to the streets, burn down Democrat cities within Democrat states where they can still get abortions while their gender transitioning kids are babysat by twerking drag queens. You forgot the part about the bedtime stories. They read. They read stories. Steven Crumley says MAGA rappers are the worst. Basic one-liners that sound like nursery rhymes, like Tom Mack. Oh, Payday Monsanto is actually good. He says he's a Payday Monsanto connoisseur. There's no comparison. I would never have put MAGA rap and Payday Monsanto in the same category. But he did this ingenious thing. I'm going to have to play it. This is Payday Monsanto. He's a rapper, but this is a parody video he did mocking NASA for all of their spacewalks where you can see bubbles in space. This is a trailer, Bubbles in Space. If you haven't heard this, I'll put a link in the chat. Excellent stuff, but from what I recall, probably a good rapper. I do recall. Definitely better than the general flat earth rappers. Here we go.
In a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. Despite the advanced technologies of multi-layered, computer-generated images, NASA is still unable to remove bubbles in space. Bubbles in space. This summer, get ready for the revelation so unbelievable that only the most observant, perceptive, unbiased will figure it out. Bubbles, bubbles, bubbles in space. Bubbles in Space starts today at theaters everywhere.
All right, and yeah, these are all bubbles in space. So if you didn't know, they have a training facility, a desalinated pool, where they simulate space weirdly by scuba diving around a simulated scale model of the ISS. Well, if you look at the footage from any so-called spacewalk, the light diffusion is identical to lights beneath in the water. Shine a flashlight in a swimming pool. Look at the lighting. Look how it disperses. Compare that to the lighting on a spacewalk. It's not crystal clear. You look out the window of the ISS, they can see city lights. It's so crystal clear. But you look at somebody 10 feet away on a spacewalk and they look like they're, I don't know, in a desalinated swimming pool. And that's what we're looking at here. Simulated spacewalks underwater, given away by bubbles all the time. And you have this whole genre of UFO spotters on YouTube who will say, oh, it's a UFO, it's a mothership, followed by little baby ships. No, those are bubbles. Like, stop lying to yourself. You know, you have eyes for a reason, but no, some of these people will make up anything rather than just admit the obvious, that, yeah, this is underwater. Why else is it so blurry? This is underwater. Look at footage of underwater drilling activity. Anyway, I forget. But anyway, this Payday Monsanto video is excellent. I put a link in the chat if anybody wants to check it out. Bubbles in Space. I can't believe it, that video only has 113 views. Okay, so we were just talking about Kyle Rittenhouse's turkey shoot. So again, it's Kyle Rittenhouse's revenge fantasy against the media. And I'm bringing this up because riot season is here. And I'm wondering, is there going to be some kind of right-wing psyop? So let's go ahead and go through our list of topics today. The Dog Days of Summer kickoff on 7/3, which is Tom Cruise's birthday. Maybe he'll have $1 billion. I mean, that movie, Top Gun 2, is doing very, very well. And we've done some extensive breakdowns of the symbolism therein. Okay, let's see. So many things to cover here. Oh, you know Mike Rothschild, the guy who wrote the book about Q. I interviewed him last year. He actually testified at the 1/6 Commission committee about Q. I have a clip here. There's so many great things here to go through, and I had this. There's so many topics, but let's stay focused. Okay, here we go. We are looking at a strange story here involving a dog named Trumpet, a bloodhound. So check this out. If you've been following anything that we've been talking about with JL, as in JL 26, um, this story will stand out. And yeah, you can find me on Skype. If you want to call in, yeah, you want to call in, let's go ahead. Let me open my phone. It's 833-311-1984. He's noticed all this narrative building, the scripting in the media and everywhere, suggesting that we're about to see some kind of event where Trump gets a head wound on 8/4. Now, it's a very specific prophecy, but when you see some of this stuff, it's hard to deny where he's going with this. And here's something that he had pointed out, and I just saw this article and I ran it by him, but he had already seen it. So you have a dog named Trumpet who's a bloodhound. And think about the keywords. Who is just crowned. Trump, blood, crowned. At the 146th Kennel Club Dog Show. So 146, Trump's birthday is 614. So you already have 614, hound dog, crowned, blood, Trump, interesting connections, maybe an Elvis connection with the hound dog. But the handler's name is Heather Helmer, which gives you an 8-8, which is very much connected with Trump. And also, interestingly enough, you had Heather McDonald, like Heather McDonald Trump, who has the birthday of 614 and fell and hit her head. So I would just say another instance of just a random story containing all sorts of foreshadowing in very specific ways. Okay, yeah, phones are open if you wanted to go ahead and call in. I have a few voicemails to play as well. Fascinating though, right? That this JL26's channel, his content speaks for itself. I just look at the information, and it all seems to be pointing at a very pivotal event in American history yet to come. Also, random question here, just for those of you who are believers in the outer space fantasy. When was electricity invented? Like sometime between 1969, 1970, and 2012? Because space didn't used to have the Earth lit up like Christmas. Hey, what's up, caller?
Hey, Tim, it's Donnie the Dead. How you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Fascinating day today, right? With the Roe v. Wade drama.
Yes, I found it interesting that they announced it 2 months ago. It leaked. Then they had the announcement for 10, and then before that they had their Happy Night of Rage. I guess tonight's supposed to be the Night of Rage or Peaceful Night. I don't know, whichever you want to call it.
Yeah, exactly. The Night of Rage, I saw articles about that. Again, giving states the green light to ban abortion. And I knew something was coming when that guy named Bruce Wynn, a very interesting Batman kind of tie-in, a guy named Bruce, or Wynn Bruce, set himself on fire in front of the Supreme Court on Earth Day. So, yeah, you're supposed to believe this has to do with climate change. I think it's just ritual, but I'm like, okay, something's going down with the courts. And right after this, we have that fake leak, which got everybody active. And now, yeah, they have their coordinated,
Yep.
planned riots about to go down.
It seems like to me, and I don't know if you've caught on to this or anybody else on IPS, is their leaks and then their narratives and then their reactionary. So you have the Uvalde thing. Well, now you have to have a march. Well, you have overturning the Roe versus Wade. Well, now you have the trademark Night of Rage. It's like every outrage or whatever narrative script they toss has to have a reaction where people take to the streets, while at the same time they are trying to hammer down this J6 thing of this massive insurrection, while you have, politicians, I guess AOC today was saying, take to the streets or something. It's like, well, which one is it? Is it an insurrection? Is it rage? Is it peaceful? Is it a riot? You can't tell. It depends on the narrative.
Yeah, it's wild, is it to me that, and this is what really stunned me on 1/6, is we were watching what looked to be a guided tour and a comedy show, a skit. It was a joke when you watch these right-wingers drunkenly bumbling around like drunk Vikings at the Capitol.
Yeah.
And so that was a far cry from the peaceful protests that had actual verifiable victims that actually did damage, and they called these things peaceful protests. And I'm like, this double standard is so bad that if you believe one side over the other, as in if you believe the Democrat narrative of this whole thing, then I don't know. You either have no attention span or you're very dishonest or something else. I can't quite grasp how people can not see the contradiction.
What I think it is, and this is my opinion on it, what I think it is kind of like they twist and turn the single issue voters. What I've noticed on the Twitter arguments as of late, and you can take each side. If you don't believe in climate change, then you're killing the Mother Earth. If you don't believe in gun control, you're killing school children. If you don't, if you don't, I guess don't believe in abortion. That's not a term. If you don't support the ban on abortion, then you're killing babies. And then they fire it back. Well, if you don't support my gun rights, then I can't protect children from shooters, or I can't do this, that, or the other. And so each side switches it, and each side builds on whatever issue voter they're trying to capture.
Yes, it's perfect. Like right now, one side's like, oh, they're trying to grab our guns, and the other side's like they're trying to grab our wombs. They want to regulate our guns or our wombs, and it's so perfectly divided. And I look at Greta and Kyle, both born January 3rd, 2003, as representative of this intentional divide. This is to me the Kraken, the split that they put where you can't be on both sides. You gotta take a stand against your the other half. It's a trap.
Correct, and then that's what it gets you at. So if you ride down the middle of, we'll call it the middle, because there really is no middle anymore, because people will try to pin you. If you are anti-vax, then you are pro-killing people. If you're pro-choice on the vax, you do what you want, then you don't respect other people's choices. So no matter which way you try to negotiate, like the vaccine or gun control, say, hey, I don't want people to have some kind of guns, or I don't care, I want everyone to have guns. Whichever way you pull on it, or you're disinterested, well, you can't do that. If you take that stance, then you're ultimately always killing someone. That's what I've noticed is the new shift, and it really kicked on this year. Is if you're if whatever side you are, if you were I guess pro-Trump winning the election, then you were killing democracy. It's really weird how everything is kind of twisted and turned into, if you don't think this way, then some way, other way dies.
Yes.
And it's either the death of your rights, the death of a body, the death of your choice, whatever.
Remember the Westboro Baptist Church used to say, sinners doom nations. And their idea was that if you're not condemning sin, you are part of the problem, and the sinners are going to bring about the wrath of God, which you can laugh at. But now we have environmentalists who say, polluters doom the world. We have 1,000 days left. And if you're not on our side, if you're not against it, you can be looked at from a revolutionary's perspective as being part of the counter-revolution. So yeah, you're killing us, you're killing future generations because of your inaction. Silence is violence was one of the things that Parkland pushed, where if you're not speaking out against gun violence, you're literally killing us by not speaking out. So, and you're right, they don't let you take any side, and there is no middle ground. Anybody who takes the middle ground is just a coward for the most part, or they're being lukewarm, or they're just not really they're trying to remain neutral, which is probably smart.
Yeah.
But to me, what we're doing here, our perspective, I'd like to think it's not necessarily, it's like neutral in the sense of, if you're looking at this thing as it's a world stage and you're not taking sides, then you can't really be accused of being the enemy of the other side. And I try to remain there. But yeah, they want to drag you in.
Well, I think that's what the logical approach is. You can look at it like, I always like the argument as like you and I being, well, I guess we can consider ourselves as males, can't have children, so therefore we have no say in things. Just like if you've never shot a gun, well, then you don't know what you're possibly talking about. You can't possibly talk about guns if you don't know what you're talking about. And sometimes those arguments, you can fall into those pitfalls themselves. But the one who I believe the person that started this was old George W. Bush, when he said, you're either with us or you're the terrorists. That kind of really, at least to my memory, that's when this whole kind of you're either this or you're that and you're nothing in between narrative really started. And now it's just reached fever pitch where, next week it's like if you drive a gas car, you're killing the earth and you're anti-EV. And if you're pro-EV, then you're anti, I don't know, Speedway gasoline station or something.
Sure. I mean, this was actually a tactic outlined in Saul Alinsky's book Rules for Radicals, where you create these polarized narratives where if they don't want to take your side, they by default are on the other side. They're accepting the status quo. And that's what they try to rely on, where I'm the underdog. If you're not accepting me, you're actually one of my oppressors. And yeah, it's like, to me, it's intellectually dishonest to force people to accept a label that only belongs to your particular model. Like, am I a polluter? Am I a carbon super spreader? Am I a virus super spreader? Am I a sinner? I would
Yeah.
say no. But there are people who check me off on those boxes.
Sure. I mean, I'm calling you on a cell phone that uses power. You broadcast over the internet, which uses power. So we're even evil carbonites, or I guess. I mean, I just find it funny. And when was that Saul Alinsky book written? Was that around? That was around probably the time of George W. Bush or Obama.
The Alinsky book,
I would.
Rules for Radicals, I'm pretty sure that was in the late 60s because
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah, I remember reading it thinking, man, this sounds exactly like a lot of the literature from the 60s, like the Satanic Bible, where it's like overthrowing the old order. Even Rules for Radicals was dedicated to Lucifer. If you read the intro,
oh,
it was
sure.
1971. And yeah, it was basically, though, about, well, everything you see institutionalized by the media with their groupthink and their identity politics comes out of his book. But
Yeah.
you know, one thing too, though, about science is the people who claim that they're, quote, for science and that we're anti-science, they're the
Mm,
believers in this thing, and they're all hypocrites if they still go out of their house. Like I saw a guy out, it's 90 degrees out, and he's wearing a mask walking to the dime store. It's like that's not scientific. And
no.
to me, I'm like, okay, so they think that scientific means to believe what the scientists say. So we have the most scientifically illiterate people who've just become believers in whatever their experts tell them.
Well, and that's what I think that's also given the rise of the fact checkers. If you ever noticed, whenever anytime there's like there's some sort of rift where people aren't buying into whatever the narrative, usually it's Twitter is promoting that day, whatever's trending. Out will come the Reuters and the AP fact check, and they'll say that, well, no, fact check is mass do work, say experts, say scientists, and they never tell you who these people are. So you do have these mythical beings that will always tell you, no, you're wrong if you don't do what we're telling you to do today.
Well, I think though too is like if you really believe the science that it was that deadly
Mm,
out there that you got to cover your mouth, then why wouldn't he just accept the science that says lock down? And then if you buy into the lockdown science on the
yeah.
pandemic model, you therefore, to be logically consistent, must accept the same scientists who tell you that the planet
Mhm.
can't take any more carbon. So you got to stay home for that too. So I honestly think anybody with a mask is a hypocrite if they're actually leaving their homes, and they're a hypocrite if they're driving cars because they should therefore believe in global warming.
Sure, and that's the thing is each thing is a trap, and it seems like and you get entrapped depending on kind of which way you go, and I think that's where IPS we kind of negotiate the middle and highlight the hypocrisies on both sides. It's like the other thing too I found very interesting is each side now is well vote for me and I'll either protect your abortion rights or I'll ban abortion, and it's like they build on it, they've divided, now they're using their terms on which they want to use. And there's an election season coming up in the United States, and that's what this all seems about. Is it's the usual suspects always come out: guns, abortion, Social Security money, the economy, and they just throw the gas in the economy because now it's Putin causes everything. Putin cured this, now he causes it again, and then there was monkeypox, now it's polio, I guess, is back. It's like they keep throwing these narratives out here to find like the mask wearers and the gun owners and the anti-abortionists and the pro-abortionists, I guess you want to call them that,
Like you said,
and just
single
keep
issue.
poking them in the face.
Yeah, they
Hmm.
get single issue voters ramped up with this or that psyop and get them on the streets. And so March for Our Lives to me was giving permission to the youth to mob up and to riot, what they said. It's payback time, essentially, is what they said there. And so
Sure.
I think lines have been drawn, and yeah, this is all spectacle and theater. And someone in the comment section had said, if you go out into these events and you're not a crisis actor, essentially you're making a mistake. And I agree with that. I'm expecting some kind
Well,
of psyop.
Well, I'll leave you with this: is I do as well. And if you, and I've looked through Twitter today and whatnot, and everybody protesting today, and and each side, like so, you have the pro-abortion and the anti-abortion sides. They're all wearing their costumes. Some are wearing their American flags, yay liberty, yay freedom, and then the other ones are covered in blood or green. It's like they all dress up for these events now too. There's really no organic protest of like the villagers and pitchforks anymore. Of like, hey, we don't want this. It's now dress up for the event, and I'm sure we'll see the same people in multiple different pictures in the days to come at different riots or, pardon me, nights of rage or protests or whatever, and then they'll be at different ones. So,
Yep, exactly. Well, hey, thanks for the call. A lot of people are going to make a lot of money on T-shirts and signage, this year. I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to
that's
see.
true. All
Flags, I
right. You
guess.
have a good one.
Thanks for the call. Alrighty, everyone, that's Donnie of the Dead reporting in from that side of the country. Okay, got another comment. I mean, voicemail. Thank you. Sagittarius Arms Society says Elvis movie researching fund. Oh yeah, today the Elvis movie comes out, and I am gonna go watch that movie after this live stream, and I'm gonna review it tonight. So that's what that was for. Appreciate the support and the contribution. Movie reviews are a thing I do here all the time. My view on movies is this: we know it's propaganda. Entertainment is a side effect, but that doesn't mean you can stick your head in the sand. I think you need to read the enemy playbook. Do your controlled opposition research, know more about their side than they do. And so, strategically, it makes more sense. If you know they engage in predictive programming, then you can somewhat guess their game plan by looking back and saying, hey, is that a predictive model? Let's test it. And we have. And we're finding concurrent programming just as much. So the movie might have some relevance to what's going on right now this summer. And I put March for Our Elvis because, as JL on his channel pointed out, the anagram March for Our Lives has several meanings. So, I put March for Our Evils. He put Elvis. Same thing. March for Our Evils. And so, the Elvis movie coming out today may have some very specific significance. And if you followed his channel or our discussions, there seemed to be a lot of predictive programming centered around one, Seattle, the date 6/11, which is when March for Our Lives hit the streets, and the season 4 of Stranger Things. By the way, that wraps up on the 1st, the rest of season 4. These movies, like season 4 of Stranger Things, even from season 1, but they all have tie-ins to right now. And season 4 had concurrent tie-ins to 2 of the shootings. And we're talking about a TV show recorded a year ago. Some of it across the street from where I live, actually. And it's like, wait, they recorded this a year ago, so they put an apology on the front. You watch season 4 and it says, we apologize, this might remind you of the shooting in Texas. It's like, what do you mean? Why should you apologize for something you made in advance? It's not like you knew. Well, it's because they're giving you that association on purpose, because you didn't see the blood on TV, but now you saw it. Like, the news can't show you dead bodies, but they can show you the dead bodies on Netflix. They just put it all together in one nice package. Yes, get ready. DHS warns of specific threats facing pro-life orgs churches as Nights of Rage start at 8 p.m. So anytime the DHS warns of something, it means they're drilling for something. In fact, recently in Austin, they were doing drills for dirty bombs. So if you're in Austin, be ready to have to put on a mask for fallout. They'll have a lockdown they're looking for other reasons to get people to lock down. Climate change, nuclear fallout. Spirit Jordan says, plenty of French zombies with masks at the mall today, afraid but not too afraid to shop. Exactly. Science says humans are dangerous, lock down, stay home. It doesn't say put on a cloth mask and behave like you normally do. Were they using hand sanitizer? I mean, holy water? Which is it now? I would say no. I guarantee 100% of the mask cucks you see walking around don't even bother with hand sanitizer. They put it up there to show you, look at me. I'm with science. I trust the experts. I'm signaling that I'm fighting the terrorists. So after 9/11, you could signal, you could virtue signal that you're fighting the war with a bumper sticker that says "Let's roll," or a flag that says 9/11, never forget. An American flag bumper sticker on your truck. That was enough to signal that you were fighting the terrorists with every tank of gas that you fill up in that vehicle. And it's just hypocrisy, but my point is it's virtue signaling. You might as well just put the "Let's roll 9/11 American flag" sticker over your mouth because you're not going to speak out against the war. Well, what does the COVID mask mean? More than anything, it means you're just not going to speak out against big media lies. It has nothing to do, again, with protecting you from the uh, the devil. They reinvented the devil. Like I told you, wrath of God is obviously the angry globe, but they needed to convince people of the existence of a devil. They got them sin, and they got them holy water with the hand sanitizer, but really the devil is COVID. And they set him loose to put everybody in their places and to put all their religions in their places. And every single religion got punked by scientism, which is now the boss religion. And their heaven is actually one they can deliver on. Mars, it's space, the moon bases, space utopianism. And transcendence, yeah, wait until they start uploading people's consciousness into hard drives and stuff. Now, you won't be able to tell because they'll do it after you've already died. Donnie the Dead says, thanks IPS, Elvis lives on. Yeah, there's a magazine cover, I think it's Time, or one of these magazines, it's in every store, and it says Elvis lives on, usually next to Jackie Robinson, Mr. 42. And these things are connected. Oh, Cubstar says, luckily, March for Our Lives won't be shooting anybody. Yeah, they ought to change the name to Run for Our Lives. Well, now, we can only say these things flippantly because we know that we're talking about psyops. All these stories are full of holes. Let's see. Top Gun Maverick could upset Elvis at weekend box office as Tom Cruise pick flies to 500 million stateside. Might even reach $1 billion. Now, what is the meaning here? Think about this. Okay, so Top Gun 2, 33 years apart chronologically and in their production times. They started 33 years later. Twin guns is kind of implied. This ties into the Twin Towers, and we've talked about the symbolism here. But at the March for Our Lives event, again, March for Our Elvis, everybody was on the ground praying, a moment of silence, and some guy jumps up, and you see the Washington Monument, the obelisk in the background, and he screams, "I am the gun." Like, what do you think that means? Well, it's a Top Gun reference, and the gun has very significant meaning here if you look at the ways that it's synonymous with the obelisk and what that represents. What the phoenix, the burning man, these are all consistent symbols. Like right now, it really is. It's guns and wombs that are being targeted for regulation on either side of the fence. All right, let us continue here. Look, I'm going to be back later on today, by the way. We're going to be watching, doing a review actually later. I'm going to go watch the Elvis movie. So thanks again, Sagittarius Arms Society, for that contribution to my popcorn fund. So this afternoon, I will be watching it, reviewing it this evening, because I think it may have some predictive programming value. It's also notable that Tom Hanks is in it, and Tom Hanks is attached to all of the major psyops. Spirit Jordan says gun equals 42. Agree. Thanks ACW78. He says best orator around. Yeah, I am a misinformation super spreader, and this is ground zero for some of the most disruptive memes from the perspective of the world stage, because we definitely go out of bounds. We are the channel that did research flat earth on a billboard, and the media didn't know how to handle it. If you look at the screen here, look at the night side of earth. Look how dark it is. It's because the sun is lighting up the other side of the ball. So if you're on the dark side of the ball, well, it's dark. It's night. So explain to me why now, when you see images of the earth from space, it's lit up like a Christmas tree. Just depends on what camera you're looking through. The further away they go, the darker it is. I don't get it. It should be lit. This is a major contradiction. There are many such contradictions, bubbles in space being one of them. But yeah, compare images of Earth from space. Contrasts give it away. Look at people in zero G and the in the ISS, or what's allegedly zero G, and compare them to people on vomit comets, free fall. There, everything moves differently. It is so different. Okay, so let us continue here. On the screen, you're looking at one of the astronauts cosplaying like she's from the movie Gravity with Sandra Bullock. So yeah, okay, so she dresses like Sandra Bullock. She poses like Sandra Bullock. And I suspect they have a few other things in common. But, I mean, one, they're actors. But something else about this. Sandra Bullock can do flips. She can roll around. She can actually simulate zero G. The person here, she's got a ton of hairspray, and she's hanging from cords. So, I find a lot of these things to be self-debunking, but the way they move gives it away. And I have a question about certain things, like on the ISS. There are some stories out right now that I'm not even going to touch, just about how foul the place is. Like, apparently it's disgusting. But I've seen evidences of people dyeing their hair, of Botox, and of female astronauts shaving their legs. How is that possible in space? What kind of razors are they using? Like, where? That's a lot. That we're talking about, like, a lot of there's a lot of waste. There's a lot of biomatter that really you cannot really account for. Speaking of Sandra Bullock, most streamed Netflix movies of all time, Bird Box. The first 28 days on Netflix was streamed 282 million times. So what does that mean? It means that they inundated the public with this particular image, this concept, this movie. So think about this. Prior to the pandemic, you were flooded with images of pandemics. There's actually a documentary called The Pandemic. Prior to 9/11, we all saw plenty of things showing us Twin Towers going down in flames or being knocked over. So what do you have here? Well, this was before the pandemic. This was a movie about a lady paranoid to go outside because the people without their masks on would kill them. So she and her kids have to get their masks on and make it to the sanctuary, the place where they're quarantined, more or less. But to get to quarantine, they got to get out there where people don't wear masks. Only in this movie, when they're not wearing masks, they go psycho. And if you look in their eyes, you go crazy. So you have to cover their eyes. But if you just switch the mouth for the eyes with the covering, this was a story about a paranoid mother dealing with anti-maskers, dealing with anti-vaxxers. And it was all about paranoia and fear, and about she had to constantly yell at her kids for their own safety. It was hard to watching Sandra Bullock yelling at children, but like honestly, the way they produced the movie, I'm like, how is that not abusive? Let me go through your comments some more here. Marve Live says, I'm walking out from the all raining bullets and the pain in the education system. Oh yeah, you're part of the mass shooter generation. Should be run for our lives, right? This is the whole thing is part of this children's crusade psyop. If you followed the March for Our Lives story, it ties in, they brought in the narrative of the children's crusade. That's why they had it on an Ash Wednesday where they have the ash crosses on their forehead. They're taking up the cross. In fact, the crusades were kicked off in large part by some guy named Nicholas. So think Nick Cruz. Nick Cruz, Nick Cross. Taking up the cross for the crusades. Thank you, Nico Tromus. We appreciate the support. He says, perhaps glowy good. Am I glowing? You know, the one reason I would say I'm not glowing, that I'm not a Fed, is I'm not pushing any narratives that bolster the mainstream narrative. I'm not a false flagger. And to me, that's the line in the sand. And I'm not a ball worshiper, which is another thing too. All right, let me go ahead and catch up on some comments and we will continue. All right, I definitely appreciate the support. Like I said, everyone, I'm heading out to Elvis after this, and we'll be back live later for open phones. A. Woodward said, I missed the days on DLive when we were free. I won't go back. Yeah, I cut DLive out. 3,000 plus subs, no longer, until they pay up. And I let them know on Twitter. DLive was the channel that was a streaming platform that censored me because of 1/6. I had nothing to do with that. They lumped me in with alt-right. And this is what the caller was discussing, Donnie the Dead, in about how you get so polarized where you're not allowed to be in the middle. You can't be neutral reporting on things. No, you can't be media. So just talking about 1/6 got us cut off. Twitch too. Yeah, they're definitely. But my point is this, and that's why you hear the Godzilla noise. The more they censor us, the more we focus on our own thing. And our own thing is this Godzilla. It is this Kraken. It's this Leviathan that we are waking up. And by the way, this was brought to my attention by one of our commenters. Does anybody here want to guess Godzilla's birthday? Godzilla's birthday. I'll give you a hint. Twin towers go down after 33 years, go down in flames. 13 years later, they open them back up with a new tower that's 1,776 feet tall. The new tower is opened up on Godzilla's birthday. Anybody? 11-3. Mitchell says you could use Owncast. Yeah, I'm in favor 100% of going completely independent, white labeling, and never naming these other platforms. But the only reason we're on YouTube is to make an incursion onto their property, because we know what they are. They've become a de facto commons, but they run it like they are an extension of government. So I see it as only fair that we always maintain a presence there no matter what. We're witnessing, I think, a very corrupt corporation firsthand, and we're watching them basically sell out everything that was good about their company. I mean, YouTube used to be great. Now it's the great media whore. The YouTube is the worst. I mean, honestly, MSMTube. And they really got to me. They targeted me back in October of 2017. So the Vegas shooting is happening, and I'm pointing out all the ridiculousness about the initial photographs. 20 minutes into a live stream, they pulled the plug on our channel. So that's when it started. So clearly they were threatened, and they said then that they now had a policy that when it came to tragic events, quote unquote, which to me means tragedy, as in like plays. They should just say tragic comedies, but they said in tragic events, they're going to give authoritative sources priority listing. Stephen Crumley says, hey man, Tim Truth and others are my only media sources. Oh yeah, Tim Truth is great. Jenna Lovecraft Reese says, I have the old press pass, but I plan to order a new one. Yeah, look, if you're waiting on press passes or stickers, I got held back by a few days, but we're rebounding. So everything that was held back, you'll be getting tracking numbers. And as a rule, if I'm ever late on anything that I'm shipping, I usually include extras just to make up for it, and I'm always open to refunding. But for the most part, I get everything out with tracking right away. But yeah, we had some minor, what'd you say, obstacles here and there. Nothing big. So many things to cover today, though. We barely scratched the surface. I have about an hour before I have to go out and see Elvis. I watched Top Gun. I was the only person there with a composition notebook, and every single name in Top Gun, every detail, every shot was consistently elucidating the same set of symbols, the same concept about a second coming, a resurrection. Top Gun. You had the rooster, which you might know another name for a rooster is a cockerel. You had the Phoenix character. You have Hangman, who happens to be played by an actor who's 33. But if you go through that movie, as I did, scene by scene, it's telling a story, and it ties into the first story, and it's about a 33-year-old or a 33-year period between the first event and the second. It's about a comeback, a second coming. It is replete with, I don't want to say Christian, because they use Christ and Phoenix and Hanged Man almost interchangeably. But I went through it in detail, and I'll be doing the same. I'll be doing the same with this movie. Steven says, YouTube was a place back then for raising your awareness. You could find anything. It used to be. It used to be a place where we called it YouTube University, where it's very easy to integrate with Google Hangouts. So you could have half a dozen people on a panel conversation about any comment, any topic rather. You can go into detail. You could talk about things even if you're wrong. And I thought it was healthy. It's like, let's shine a light on this idea, get the best minds on there. And it lasted for some time, and bad ideas were given the treatment that they deserve. But now their whole approach is, let's just burn the bad ideas so that there's only good ideas. So they don't want you to have knowledge of good and evil. They want you ignorant, and they want you dependent on them to tell you what is good and what is bad. This is why they flood you with 48 hours of news every 24-hour news cycle so that you don't have a choice. You don't have enough time to know what's real and what's not, so you become, by default, a believer. So now it becomes a matter of trusting the right experts. And if you look, half of the people trust this panel of experts, the other half trust that panel of experts. And both of them are believers. Neither of them know what the hell they actually believe. They're just going with the flow. They don't fact check. They don't reality test the claims of the MSM. Thank you, Thirst. We appreciate the support. Appreciate the popcorn here. Yeah, going into the movie theater with a notebook is, to me, it's essential because you're hit so heavily with propaganda, you could miss things. And even in the trailers, I was like watching and it says, well, it starts off with the trailer for the Air Force, like some promo piece to sign up to join the Air Force. So clearly they know something. The Air Force knows that movies actually do something in terms of shaping somebody's values, how they see themselves as an incentive. It motivates people. They do sell you on visions. All right, like I said, though, we are going to be live this evening. After I've watched the movie, I'm going to do a deep dive review on it. We've just kind of skimmed the surface here. We had a great call from Donnie of the Dead, who was making the point that if you don't support their side, you're against them. If you're not with us, you're against us, and you are basically killing babies if you're on the other side. Like on the one hand, yeah, you're killing babies because if you're against abortion, well now hangers are going to kill babies in alleys. On the other side, if you're against guns, well, kids are going to get shot because good guys with guns can't stop the bad guys with guns. So both of them see themselves as being, protectors. And I'm like, well, let's just ban guns and ban hangers then. That'll solve it, right? Again, I know this was just a kind of a short recap on things, but I had to get the 24/7 restarted. No longer on DLive until they pay up. If they do pay up, and let them know. Say, hey, pay Infinite Plane Radio. I want to listen to what they have to say. I like your platform. Can you pay them? And if they do, I'll go back. But the thing is, I can't allow them to take donations from people and split it with the Chi-Coms and not give any bit to us. I mean, it's just not fair. Let me play my voicemails next, and then we'll get out of here.
Hey, Tim. I was wondering if you could explain how dinosaur footprints could be real or could not be real, because I'm here in Prince, Utah, and the people here are telling me that they have coal mines that have footprints on the ceiling, of their mine shafts. And I was dumbfounded. So if you could explain your theory on, or just look into dinosaur footprints, and then
Okay, dinosaur footprints. Does anyone here have any opinion on dinosaur footprints? Look, I don't believe in dinosaurs necessarily. I don't necessarily think that there were bones. Some will say, well, they had bones, but the Skull and Bone Society collected those and stashed them, and replaced them because those bones were actually from giants, and they gave us the dinosaur myth. I'm not really sure To me, it's always a disappointment to find out that they found a supersaurus, so some big giant dinosaur nearby. So you go to the museum and you see this big, gigantic, 4-story tall skeleton. And you're like, wow, they unburied that. And the children believe this stuff to be real, and I did too until I educated myself on it. If you look closely, every single dinosaur skeleton you see is a model made in China. Just look for the tag, it'll say made in China. It's plaster. And the dinosaur that they excavated was just a toe bone. And they extrapolated from that toe bone a whole creature. It's science fiction. I mean, imagine two archaeologists and they need a grant. So they go to KFC for lunch to discuss how they're going to get some money. And one of them says, hey, let's just go leave one of these chicken bones in the playground there. I'll discover it and we'll go from there. So they bury a chicken bone in the playground. They, quote, discover it. They think it's a dinosaur toe bone. And then they have an excavation. They create a computer model. They order it from China, put it in the museum. Boom. Now it exists. So as far as dinosaur footprints on the ceiling, could be anything. But I wouldn't jump to conclusions. It's like, do you have to put dinosaurs on the table right away? Okay, next.
Hey, just found out that the Uvalde school is being torn down and demolished, evidently, which I thought was interesting because I think that's a link up to Sandy Hook. Isn't that what they did with Sandy Hook? I think they demolished the whole school and everything. So figured that would be
Yep, they did. They quote, the superintendent said they were going to quote raze, R-A-Z-E, raze the school as in burn it down. Burn it down, build back better. Obviously, that's exactly what they did with Sandy Hook. Obviously, this is part of hiding the evidence, but it's also ritual. Because if you look at the school of Uvalde, it had a sign out front that said, we will rise. It's like, wait, we will rise? They haven't even died yet. And now you can see, you rise. And this is all Masonic because you're initiated, but then they raise you to the 3rd degree after they kill you. So you rise from the dead, you've been, quote, raised. Mom with Son says JLB has dug into the dino hoax pretty deep. Yeah, JohnLeBon.com. I had to invite him on to talk about dinosaurs. It'd be a nice change of topic. Okay, I think I have another voicemail.
Epidemic Prevention Center. You have a new message. 你好，卫生部防疫中心，你有一则新信息，查询请按3，按3获取详细内容。Hello, the Ministry of Health Epidemic Prevention Center. You have a new message. 你好，卫生部防疫中心。
Okay, I got a message from the Ministry of and House Epidemic Prevention Center.
你有一则新信息，查询请按3，按3获取详细内容。
Okay. I'm waiting until we get the social credit scores when the Chinese take over. Like, I hope I hope I get a clean slate. Because I got to be so deep in the hole right now. They're already reaching out to me saying I got to report. I've been watching this TV show it's on Netflix. It's called Man in a High Castle. And this is based on Philip K. Dick's work. So I thought it was going to be very heavy sci-fi, which it kind of is, but it's actually much more. It's about this alternative reality in a sense where the Nazis and the Japanese beat America in World War II. Completely different outcome. And so the main characters are basically Nazis and these Japanese imperialists. It's all just fascists running the place. Now, what's interesting here, though, is that you have this character, the man in the high castle, who has all these films that are like propaganda films, or rather fake films. So, for example, there's a film that this man has that shows some type of nuclear bomb or hydrogen bomb that blows up a big city, and it's supposedly 1,000 times stronger than what they have. Well, all they have is a film. Does this thing exist? No, not necessarily. However, they're able to use this film to sway the other side's decision. Hey, if you do this, we have this. And so what we were seeing here is interesting because it shows how an enemy's, quote, leaked film of a test, of a weapons test, when seen by a few, can change the world. And so if you think about it, how many people laid eyes on the COVID-19 virus? How many people saw planes on 9/11? So my point being here is that if a few people who are considered expert witnesses can testify to something, it becomes real. And this movie, Man in a High Castle, shows how we are pretty much held hostage by what the leadership says they believe, not what's true. But yes, this is a bit more alternate dimensions. It's still good. It's still interesting. All right, thanks again, ACW78, for the chocolate-covered raisins. We will be back this evening. I'm going to go check out the Elvis movie and do a review. I'll send out text message notifications. And if you're not getting those, go to infiniteplane.media. And at the very top, I have a sign-up where you can get in on the text message notifications. This is Nightmare by JT33 featuring Symbia. I'm going to turn it back to the 24/7. We'll be back later.
When your conscience tells you I know this, they cannot hold us.
They trap our emotions.
They cannot hold us.
They trap our emotions. This is the room where you spoke of, and that's where you woke from.
They cannot hold us.
They trap our emotions. This is the room where you spoke of, and that's where you woke from.
They cannot hold us.
We are the apocalypse, no longer trapped behind the veil of the monolith.
Savior, nobody's coming to save you. Let go of the fear and your vision gets clearer. You get all you need from the reflection you see in the mirror. I was born for the booth. I rappelled down to the bottom of the rabbit hole on a noose, only to find more lies than the truth. Implicit in ignorant wish, because
we are the apocalypse, we are the blasphemous, no longer trapped behind the veil of a monolith. Check the economists, they're predicting the future repent.
Where is the common sense? Where is the common sense? They cannot hold us.
This is the room where you spoke of, and that's where you woke from.
They cannot hold us.
They trap our emotions. This is the room where you spoke of, and that's where you woke from.
They cannot hold us. Holy rollers put their faith in a God that was man, but it was man that made gods, fam.